go.
Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this Sunday? Hope you're all fit and well. I'm excited to say we have another guest on today's show. And this one, I'm fairly sure, will not claim to be Batman. That's a whole other story. Towards the end of the show, we're going to be joined by Chris Lafleur of Zequip. The company is pioneering the replacement of diesel engines with interchangeable battery modules. We've featured them before. We're featuring them again because it's exciting technology. But before we get to all of that, I did want to highlight something very, very quickly. About a year ago, the Competition and Markets Authority handed down fines of almost £60 million to 10 members of the National Federation of Demolition Contractors. Well, now the CMA is turning its attention to the house building sector. Now, obviously, it's way too early to know if there is actually a case to answer, although, as I've stated previously, the CMA don't normally show their hand unless they know it's a winner. But just take a look at the size of the potential fines facing the house building sector. £2.5 billion, because it's based on turnover. £2.5 billion. As I say, don't know if they're actually guilty of anything as yet, but we shall see. Now, because we do have Chris Lafleur waiting in the wings, and he's currently at Heathrow Airport on his way back home to the States. So want to crack through the main part of the show very, very quickly so we can get to him nice and early so you can ask him lots of questions about electrification, hydrogen, and all of those good things. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road just as soon as I find the intro. There we go. You really are an unforgiving bunch, aren't you? I'll have you know, this down where I am in the south of England, this hat is dead cool and trendy. It is not, as Gary Muirhead has suggested, a tea cozy on my head. Peter McKenna says, I think you would suit a Stetson. I think there are enough cowboys in this industry. Garrett Muirhead is saying, will the CMA be under the, will the plant hire industry be under the CMA radar? You'd have to think it would be only a matter of time. And good morning to Mark Whiting, who's just joined us, and everybody else. I've pressed lots of buttons to say good morning to people, but I didn't get to press Mark's button. So it is Wednesday, the 28th of February. Excuse me. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, putting the latest JCB mini excavators through their paces. We're catching up with AMI attachments and my mate Ricky Webb of East Coast Demolition, and we'll be learning how Caterpillar keeps mines moving. Plus, and far more importantly, we will be joined later in the show by our very special guest, Chris Lafleur from Zequip. But before we get to all of that, we have the small matter of today's mystery machine to decipher. So I have an animation for that. And the machine you have to identify today looks like that. Now, you may recall I showed you one part of a track yesterday, and our friend Jim Turner correctly guessed. I'm hoping I made it a bit more difficult for you today, but that's what you've got to work with. Anybody's got any clues on what that mystery machine may well be, please let me know. And I'm just going to say a very quick good morning to Lou Carney, who's just joined us all the way from Plant Works Land and Future Works Land and the Exec Car Show as well. Good morning. Good morning, Jim Turner as well, who was just pitched up, and Andy Hare, fine fellow that he is, from Northern Track. Good morning to you, one and all. Dan Cullen is going with a Liebherr D11. No such beast. There is no such beast. Not going to say any more than that, but I'm going to take that off the screen for the time being. While you're trying to figure that out, I think it is time for me to remind you of our question of the day. You people are spoiling all my fun. Bill Perry, who is watching probably from America, morning Bill, has said it's a Komatsu. It is not. And just one piece of photographic information, Gary Muirhead has already got it. It is, very much. I'll tell you now, it is the Liebherr PR776 Dozer. And just to prove it, there you are. You're going to do a quick reveal. Thanks for that, Gary. You've spoiled the game, but you will get us through the show a lot more quickly. So thank you very much indeed. So let me crack on, shall we? Yes. Our question of the day, which I've already reminded you of. If you had to give your machine a name, what would the name be? Alternatively, does your machine actually have a name? If so, what is it and why? Let me know in the chat. We'll come back to that at the end of the show, which is going to be a long way away because we've got a lot to get through. So let's crack on. Gonna say a very quick good morning to Burke Demolition, who are now watching over on Instagram. Good morning, gents. Hope you're all fit and well. Let me take that off the screen and let me get on with this. A couple of weeks ago, you might recall, I journeyed toward the frozen north to pay my latest pilgrimage to the JCB World Headquarters. The massed ranks of the construction press had been summoned to see a whole heap of new machines. We saw a range of new backhoe loaders, a new electric dumper, a pair of new tandem rollers, and 2 hot new mini excavators. We gave you a glimpse of those minis just after we got back from JCB Land, but now the company has unveiled a brand new film of the machines being put through their paces. And I'm going to share that with you right now. Now, speaking of JCB, quick reminder, in roughly 9 hours from now, I'll be sat right here in this chair, most likely wearing this hat, so long as the abuse doesn't get any worse, and probably these glasses as well. Only this time, I won't be alone. I'll be joined by JCB's Tim Burnhope, and we're going to be talking about all things related to non-road mobile machinery, the consultation that's currently taking place, and the fact that that will ultimately inform legislation that will affect all of us, basically. So please join us if you can. That's what you've got to look forward to. There's Tim Burnhope. We are doing that at 7 o'clock tonight. Be there or be square, as they say. Let's crack on. Let's have... just going to go over to Dan Cullen very quickly, who says, great video, but always found JCB mini excavators underpowered. Feel free to raise that with Tim Burnhope this evening. He was, I would guess he was involved in actually designing. You can mention that tonight. Feel free.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
So there I was, over in Las Vegas at the ConExpo show, minding my own business, when I ran into a guy called Ricky Webb. Turns out Ricky runs East Coast Abatement and Demolition, and he's a fan of the show, but he's an even bigger fan of how UK demolition contractors go about their business. In fact, he admitted he's modelled many of his attachment purchases over there based on what we're doing over here. Anyway, Ricky is now the star of a new film from those fine folks at AMI Attachments, and it goes a little something like this.
On the AMI Grafter bucket with the ram cam, the cylinders are hidden within the protective coverings, and so it eliminates any damage to the cylinders that might happen. Hey, my name is Ricky Webb. I'm CEO of East Coast Demolition. We're based out of Moyock, North Carolina. We've been in business going on 43 years now, third generation, and we specialize in heavy demolition, civil demolition, municipal and government demolition. Equipment is a big factor in how we perform as a company, and we've invested heavily into the newer equipment to provide our team with the tools that they need to be efficient. East Coast went to AMI Attachments in this situation because we were looking for a bucket and thumb combo that would allow us to have a bucket and thumb system that was self-contained and protected from the extreme conditions that we put it in. If we can protect those cylinders from getting scratched and damaged, then that prolongs the life of the machine and prevents downtime. If you damage a hydraulic cylinder, it's very expensive to replace. And so, as we've invested in new equipment, anytime we can eliminate damage to hydraulic cylinders, we do that. Working with AMI Attachments has been very, very good. They answer us and they get back to us very quickly if we have any issues, and they resolve them, in a matter of the day. If we had to order any parts or anything, they made sure that they overnighted them and got them to us quickly. So it's been a good working relationship with them. When we went to the quick coupler system, we needed to be able to have the bucket and thumb together, attached on the same unit. So when we take and disconnect from that bucket and thumb combo and we switch over to a processor, we don't have extra weight added to the stick like we normally would if we had a progressive link thumb or a standard thumb on a machine. And it keeps all of the weight on the unit and not on the stick of the excavator, which makes it safer when reaching at heights or when reaching farther out. If you need to tear a building down or reach up and grab a beam or a piece of material, you're able to do that. You can't do that with a conventional bucket and thumb. You get more rotation out of any other bucket and thumb combo that you can get in the market.
And yes, Ricky really is that cool in real life. Dan Cullen just asked, have you not showed this video before? No, we haven't. It's brand spanking new. We have featured Ricky. We interviewed Ricky on the All Quick stand at ConExpo. We've also featured AMI Attachments on the show before, but not that film because it is brand new. Now, yes, what we're going to do. Yes. I've just poked my head around the door of the green room, and I can see that Crystal Fleur has eaten all the biscuits and drunk almost all of the coffee. So I'm going to rattle through this next film as quickly as I can, and the film comes from a Caterpillar. Let's get that out of the way, and then we can get down to the real meat of the show.
Go beneath the surface with Cat Mining Parts and Service. We gauge success by the strength of your bottom line. And together, we can determine the difference between good enough and greatness. Because we know what it takes to get the job done. Want proof? Caterpillar offers a range of mining solutions to help you perform in tough applications and lower your total cost of ownership. Tools as dependable as the grit you bring to the table. An upfront investment in products made to meet your strength, penetration, and wear life needs while saving you long term. Reach your goals with confidence using equipment, parts, and technologies that work together to prevent failure. Behind all of it is an intelligent design. Cat wear parts, maintenance parts, and components work and wear as a system. In this system, repairs and replacements are completed simultaneously, helping you maintain your equipment and your productivity. It's convenient, so you can plan for maintenance, account for downtime, and run round the clock. Built by Caterpillar for Caterpillar, these reliable offerings are backed by a worldwide network of Cat dealers available 24/7 for on-the-spot consultations and on-site support. Consider Cat customer value agreements. Convenience, performance, and confidence CVAs can help you plan for maintenance and secure your business against the unexpected. And with health and condition monitoring at your fingertips, you get clear insights into the day-to-day function of your equipment and job site. You don't leave things to chance. The decision is simple. You choose Caterpillar. We'll help you dig deeper, push further, and work harder. Now let's get going.
And it's guest time immediately after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So, a couple of weeks ago, I hopped over the channel. I actually travelled under it, but that's not important right now. I went to Paris for the Intermat Press Days, where I rubbed shoulders with the great and the good of the global construction equipment sector. Most of the companies I knew. One I didn't. That company was Moog, and they were there to talk about their Z-Quip system to electrify diesel machines. Now, Z-Quip's managing director is waiting in the wings. His name is Chris Lafleur. Chris is specialised in technology, finance, and private equity, whatever that is. He's founded startup companies, owns a specialty contractor business, and has worked for HSBC. He also, I'm going to say this through gritted teeth, he also holds a master's in business administration from Harvard Business School, which means he might just be the smartest person we've ever had on this show. So while I coax him out of the green room, let me very, very quickly remind you what Z-Quip was all about. And this is quite a big file, so I'm going to have to dredge this one off of my hard drive, and it looks a little something like this.
Scheffler from Mo Construction, the market manager. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in April at Intermat. So when it comes to sustainability, decarbonization, we're really offering the Z-Quip project for retrofitting construction vehicles. So what we're doing with Z-Quip is basically it's a modular type system. So we can do this with any manufacturer's machines. We're targeting 5-ton to about 50-ton machines. And basically we can take the diesel engine out, we can replace it with multiple Z-Quip modules, 140 kilowatt, 70 kilowatt type modules. Depending on the machine size, we can retrofit it with a certain amount of modules. And we can convert that with an electric motor and keeping the hydraulic system the same. So you'll keep the same performance, but you'll have zero emission machine. It's with the modules on the machines. I'll give you an example. An excavator might take 5 modules. You're only using energy from basically one module at a time. So when that gets depleted, you can swap out the modules that you might have on another machine on the site or on the site itself. The modules are also fast chargeable in under an hour. With the modules, number one, if you have like an excavator, I'll give you an example with 5 modules, you don't really need to purchase all 5 modules depending on the work that you do. You may just run the machine on 3 modules. If you need to run extra long run time, you can add another module to keep the machine running. The modules can be fast chargeable. You can keep a module on site and that can be fast charged at the same time. So if you need it, you can swap that out and again, increase your run time. The other thing you do is you could purchase extra modules and have those delivered by vehicle. So as you're watching the machine and the energy deplete, you can always make sure that the machine's available to run. There's 2 types of the same basic footprint, but you can switch those between machines. So if one day you're just using your excavator and you have extra Z-Quip modules on your wheel loader, you can take it off the wheel loader and put it on the excavator and you can maintain your job. The Z-Quip solution, it really is a lower cost way to enter an electric market. So in some cases you have to buy, what we call a capital expense. So you have to buy a fully electric machine. In this case with the retrofit and just buying, a smaller amount of modules, you don't have to pay the full expense up front, but you can add modules as you go and as you need, as you learn about electric machines. I think the most key thing is really on the Z-Quip side is we want to let them know that we've made electrification easy. That's really the intent of Z-Quip. So we really don't want people in the construction industry to worry about things like runtime, serviceability. All of the things that Z-Quip offers really takes those worries away. We also want to make sure we're not changing their daily operations or sometimes what we call con-ops or construction operations. We've basically modeled Z-Quip to actually model what they do today with diesel fuel. So it should be pretty straightforward and easy for people to convert to electric machines.
And there you are. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. Now, just to explain to everybody, if you can see in the background, Chris is actually at Heathrow Airport at the moment, and he's on his way back to the States. So we've probably got him till about 11 o'clock. So keep those questions coming in. I've got one to get us rolling, but I can already see another one from Gary Muir. Anyway. When I played that film previously, about 2 weeks ago, one of our audience suggested that you have missed the boat and that the industry is now heading towards the use of hydrogen. So before we get into the real nitty-gritty here, explain to me why Z-Quip is more than just a stopgap until hydrogen pitches up.
Right. I give anybody credit to think that zero emission has been figured out in a way that anyone's missed the boat. And I mean, the way we're trying to approach this is less about looking into the future and picking the technology that is the one that will win, and more taking an approach of, we talk to OEMs, we talk to end users, we understand all of the limitations of the supply side through OEMs with the work that we do at Moog, but we also understand the demand side and the problems that customers have with taking zero emission solutions. And so our opinion isn't that hydrogen will never win, or that electrification will never win, or that either will win at all. It's about finding different solutions for different use cases and making sure that we can get to market as fast as possible with those types of solutions.
It's interesting you should say that. Obviously, our show this evening with Tim Burnhope of JCB is to discuss precisely that. Even the government at the moment doesn't know whether we're going hydrogen, electric, combination thereof, or whether there's even an alternative to that. So it is early days. I am going to throw over to, there's a first question from the audience from Gary Muirhead. How long does a module last?
This is the right question, but the wrong idea. This is when you think about electrification, you have to add a different layer of what it means to be productive and what you do to get things done. What the energy needed to do a job, it depends on the digging conditions. It depends on if it's rock or clay or sand. It depends on the operator. Some operators are very efficient and very clean with their motions, and others are just whipping the stick around. And so when you think about how long does a machine last, how long does a battery last, we hear all the time customers saying, I need this to last all day. I need it to last 8 hours. And that's not the right way to look at it. You don't need the batteries on the machine to last 8 hours or 12 hours or 24 hours. You need the ability to get as much energy to the machine as possible so that the machine can continue to work as you need it to work. So that being said, we've done these 140 kilowatt hour modules. If you put it on a 8-ton cat, which we've done on a 8-ton 308, that'll last about 5 or 6 hours. If you put them onto a 25-ton, you can put 5 modules that could last anywhere from 4 to 7 hours, depending on the use case.
Okay, Peter McKenna says it's a cool idea. Dan Cullen says, how easy are these modules to change over if there's no telehandler or way of lifting? Can you still change them? They look quite big and I'm guessing quite heavy. I guess you do need some machine assistance.
Right. They each of these, the 140 kilowatt hour modules weigh 3,000 pounds around. So you do need the ability to change them with another machine. The different conapps you have on site can make it easy. So if you're at a stationary site with a tower crane, that's the easiest way to do this. If you're not doing that, telehandler, skid steer, wheel loader, other excavator, if there's anything around it would be able to swap these out. And the modules are quite easy to swap too. There's only 4 connections in the back. They're high voltage, they're 700 volt, but it's extremely safe. There's no electrocution risk, and they can be swapped out in 5 minutes, no problem.
Well, I'm slightly confused by the math because A, you're talking in imperial, and B, I can't do math. But you said £3,000 per module. If you're talking about 5 modules, £15,000. I don't know, £150,000 rather. £15,000. Sorry,
15,000.
I don't know how that stacks up in terms of how does that affect the weight of a machine? Is that heavier than an engine, or is it lighter, or is it somewhere around about the same?
They're heavier than an engine, and so they will be offset by a new counterweight. So when we convert the machines, we take off the diesel, the tank, all of the radiator and cooling, and then we remove the counterweight. We install a new conversion kit that can take the battery modules, and we put all the associated electronics and motors with that. And then there's a new counterweight that will go on. And so it's important with all of this that you keep the same center of gravity, moment of inertia, same weight and feel. So this should not feel any different from the diesel machines. They're just quieter and smoother.
I guess that then raises the question about strain on other component parts, undercarriage, transmission, and that kind of thing. I take it you factored all of that kind of thing in.
Right. Yeah. Everything will act the same. I mean, if anything, we see as you start to build into more efficient machines that Moog has an expertise in with hydraulic efficiency and a little more technologically advanced solutions like that, it can be easier on the components. It's lower heat waste, it's lower pressures and temperatures on a lot of the components, where with diesel, energy is unlimited and abundant. You just pump energy into the machine at all times. But with electric, it's more thoughtful because energy is not unlimited. So you have to be more efficient, and it turns out to be a much nicer machine.
Lots and lots of questions coming through. How long does it take to convert a machine? For example, a 20-ton excavator or a loading shovel. I take it this is going back to a dealership or something like that. It's not, presumably not done on site as such.
Right. So it'll go through any of the fleet owners. So we've talked to some who are larger GCs who own their own machines, and they're comfortable converting it. Or we have partners who do the mechanical conversion itself. When we pick a new machine, it takes about 5 months to engineer the conversion kit specifically for that. But then after that, it only takes about 2 weeks to convert a machine. And as we get more in the portfolio, right, not every 20-ton is its own unique thing. I mean, a lot of these have almost the exact same layout and configuration of the components. So the more machines we get in our portfolio, the faster we can do these conversions for our customers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess once you've done a Cat 320, for example, you've then got I'm just going to say the drawings, like somebody sat there with a cigarette packet. But you've got the template for it by that point.
They're quite close. Right, right.
Okay. Gaz Evans from Gem Attachment says, how would these battery excavators perform in river and sea work?
You can get them wet just as anything else. They can be in the elements. The batteries are very, very tightly sealed and weatherproof. But just like any other machine, you don't want to dunk it in. The only time it would not be good in the river work is if you're in a position where the machine shouldn't be there anyway, where the water's up to the cab and burying the modules themselves. So, okay. But there is we do get the question if you're thinking too, there's no electrocution risk. It's not like dropping a toaster in a bathtub. It's not like that.
that should be the highlight of the brochure when you put it out.
You're okay.
Peter McKenna has just said, considering there are other technologies in design and testing stages now, what do you think to the new Toyota water hydrogen in engine production? Will it impact EV market? How would that affect your business?
I don't know much about that. What I can tell you about all of the new technologies coming out is that the more that comes out and the more variation we have in this, the better it will be for everybody. You have to approach a new technology or a new industry like this of zero emission with just the goal of getting zero emission construction happening. And yes, I want our solution to win, but if you continue to come out with new, innovative, and productive solutions, you get more of the buy-in and you get a more educated customer base. And the more people see the potential of different technologies, the more willing they are to try new technologies. And so there's a lot that's going to happen that is out of our control and that will negatively and positively impact us. But as long as things are going in the way that lift, like a boats all rise type of environment for this, that's what we care about.
It's an interesting point you make there. I mentioned before you came on the show, before you came on air, I've been trying to come up with an analogy, and I do feel in some ways that hydrogen is kind of queering the pitch a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try the analogy and see if I can make it work in my head this time. It's like you've got a current iPhone, and there's an iPhone 15 that's just come out, but you know full well that there is an iPhone 16 that will be hydrogen powered. Do you wait? Do you take the hit now? And the answer to that is as it stands at the moment, we couldn't power a hydrogen iPhone anyway. We don't know how much it's going to cost, and we don't know, whether it's even going to work. So, in some ways, it's just kind of taking our eye off the ball, isn't it?
But we're getting out of it now. But this is all you're doing is spinning a hydraulic pump in a zero emission way, and you can do that through batteries. You can do that through hydrogen, but hydrogen can come in hydrogen internal combustion or hydrogen fuel cells. There's no reason that those all have to be mutually exclusive, right? With the solution that we have, these large battery modules are filled with batteries and smarts on the battery. But a hydrogen fuel cell could just as easily fit inside of those and go into the machine and use it. And so this is the whole idea behind the modularity that we're doing, is the idea that in such an early phase, anybody will know exactly what will work, to the point where I'm going to put it into a full production line and go all in on an investment. It's just not how things work. And so we wanted to make this in a way where I know for sure that our machines, if you convert a machine with this Z-Quip idea, you can use batteries currently. You can use batteries from different manufacturers. You can use batteries of different chemistries. You can use hydrogen fuel cells. You can use anything else, as long as it is in a module that produces energy that can spin a pump. And you have to take it that way. You have to take it with the intention of just find a good way to spin a pump.
There's another point, I think, which was one of the things that really triggered in my mind when I first came across the Z-Quip a couple of weeks ago in Paris, is the fact that this is a conversion. We're talking about, there are millions of machines already out there in the field. We don't really want to be building new electric or hydrogen machines, because that actually has a negative impact on sustainability. We're using minerals and resources and energy to actually make new machines. To be able to convert in this way just makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Right. And we've seen a lot of concerns in Scandinavian countries where the government has mandated zero emission. And what it's done to the diesel market is it has almost immediately dropped your residual value of a diesel machine to zero. And we have customers who are now concerned about buying diesel machines, like you said, because they're afraid it's going to be worth nothing because they can't use it and they can't sell it. And on top of that, I think we can all appreciate the infinite wisdom of governments by mandating zero emission, but then saying you have to destroy a diesel engine, or you have to destroy that machine, you have to get rid of it there. It doesn't make sense, and it's just wasteful. And so, yes, you want things to be clean, but you want to be smart about it. And you don't want to take a perfectly good machine and throw it away just to go buy a perfectly good machine.
Very valid question. I know this is there's a lot of scaremongering around Teslas and EVs and that kind of thing. If they catch fire, how can firefighters put them out? Or are they similar to an EV car? Or are they safer? Good question.
They're very similar, right? When you think about batteries and the fire risk, it's not like an explosion. It's not like all of a sudden your machines are gone. There are a lot of ways internal to the batteries that you can test them, and our battery supplier is phenomenal with this. They do a lot of off-highway work. So we're comfortable that we're using some of the safest batteries you can possibly buy. But just like anything, right? If something happens, what we wanted to make sure was that you, as the machine owner, don't have to be worried about what that means for the rest of your assets and the rest of your fleet. So being in the UK now, we just learned that insurance companies require machines to be about 6 meters away. Diesel machines and electric machines have to be 6 meters away from each other. So if an electric machine starts on fire, there's not a problem. But this is why modularity in a battery is so important, because we can know far ahead of time if there's a problem with the battery, even before it's to the point where it's burning or on fire. And we can notify somebody to go remove the battery, put it somewhere safe. The machine is safe. The rest of the batteries are safe. The rest of your fleet is safe. And so I think it's more about just doing it in a way that acknowledges that things can happen, but mitigating any of the risk that comes along with that.
Another question on lifetime of the module. What is the lifetime of a module? And one of the things that triggered in my head when I first saw that question come up was, is this a purchased solution? I know somebody's mentioned on this show in the past where you've got people like Rolls-Royce who are now selling effectively flying hours to aircraft. Is this going to be a strictly purchase operation, or will we be able to hire our energy?
You would be able to hire the energy for sure. What we've been telling customers is, when you think about energy, rather than equipping the machine with the largest amount of batteries that you can, that's expensive and that's wasteful. Any day when you get done with the job and you have battery left, you wasted money. It's not like a fuel tank. That is energy that you paid for that you do not get back, because battery capacity is the high expense, not the energy itself in the battery. And so what we tell customers is, think about your average use case. Think about the minimum amount of work that you're getting done every day and buy those batteries. That's the right use case for that. But everything on top of that, you can pay on a per pay for performance type of system where you can rent, you can lease. We have different customers have different things. Or as a fleet owner, you would have specific modules that are installed on a machine, and then you would have a reserve of batteries that you flow between different machines as they need to get more work done.
That kind of feeds into the comment from Jim Turner, who says, this looks about the best electrification idea with the removable, replaceable modules. Could there not be a big Bowser battery bank to decant into the machine-mounted batteries at a faster rate? That's more akin to dieseling up a conventional internal combustion machine. Good question.
Like I said, I don't know what a Bowser battery bank is.
I think it's more you would have an on-site storage for diesel, so you'd have a big diesel tank. Could you have a big battery bank?
We have, yes, yep. So that makes sense. Yes, we do that. So we have currently now where they can have about 4 of these 140 kilowatt hour batteries in them at one time, plugged in and charging. This comes into another point where when you start to think about this, the efficiency and the value starts to make more sense as you go bigger and bigger, and not bigger in just machine size, but bigger in scope of what it means to be electric. And so our intention for these equip modules is not just to be the battery on a machine. It is to be the source of energy for a job site. And so if you take that first example we had where you have a set amount installed on each machine, and then you have a bank of them that you can flow across machines, those don't just have to go to the machines. They can go to replace diesel generators. They can replace your diesel gen sets on site. They can power your torches. They can power your other electric vehicles you have on site. They can power your lights. They can do everything like that. And so the software that we've built around it is meant to do that. It's meant to say, what is the total amount of work being done on a site? How much energy does that require? How much energy do we think has to be allocated to each machine or tool or job to get that accomplished? And then how do we facilitate those around the site to make sure that they are where they need to be? And when we say stuff like that, people are like, God, that's crazy. That's so much work. And then you point out that you're doing this on a site that's building $100 million data center and high-tech something. It's like, this is the simplest thing you're going to be doing on a site. It's not difficult. It's just new.
On that basis, we've had a question here where I'm. Let's have a look. There we go. Dan Collins says, if you're not happy, can you reintroduce the diesel engine? Now, I realise you've already answered the question. I don't think it's whether you're happy with it, but I was thinking when I was first introduced this idea of maybe a project with a limited time scale where you need to be completely sustainable, or you don't want diesel fumes working inside or whatever it might be. So to be able to switch in and switch out, that is a possibility.
It is. It would not make financial sense for you to do that, but you could find alternative ways to power this machine, right? And so if you want to go back to diesel, I guess, but I would recommend that if you're willing to make this investment in a machine, you don't want to undo that. It's a tough one.
Okay, Dan again, and I think this is a good one. It kind of plays into something else we got there. What is the position on freezing weather? Will they burn energy faster? And I know somebody else asked, which is a constant question whenever we talk about electric machines. You set the duration that you can work, but if you've got the heater on or if you've got the aircon on, that's going to drain the battery. I guess that's exactly the same situation here. Yeah.
I mean, we're making these in Buffalo, New York. So if there's one thing we always get made fun of for, it's having really cold weather, and the weather is not a problem. We have very, very thick insulation around the inside of the modules. They are climate sealed, and then we also have thermal management. We have thermal management within the battery modules and then thermal management on the machine itself. And so that makes sure that the battery is always maintained at the right temperature. So batteries just really like being at the same temperature all the time. And so the smarts within our battery keep it at the right temperature all of the time.
This is a constant question as well. Gaz Evans is back. What would the life of the battery be? And one of the things that I've been exposed to, having spoken about this with the likes of JCB and Volvo and others, is we're not necessarily talking about one life here, particularly with a modular option. Maybe the module reaches the end of its natural working life for an excavator operation, but there's nothing to stop that being put into a power pack to power the lights or whatever it might be, I guess.
Right. The life of the battery is much longer than the life of the machine. We have, and it depends on how you treat the battery. So when you fast charge, where you do these quick 1 hour charges, we expect our batteries to last for about 5,000 charges. So if you charge once a day, recharge the battery, each battery, I mean, you're going 15, 20 years on that. And so if you slow charge, it's even more. So you also have to separate the battery from the module. So we've built these in a way where, I mean, if you just say, we don't know if it's going to be hydrogen or battery, we don't know what kind of battery technology is going to work. I mean, the investment and the scale at which battery investment has gone up is greater than any technology in the history of the world. And to think that we're going to make a 20-year life battery that will still be relevant in the next 10 years is crazy. So we wanted to make sure that we took out the risk of obsolescence with these to say, as technology changes, as innovation happens in the battery space, we can take the old batteries out that are less efficient, use them in a second life, like you said, as a generator on site to power things that don't need the crazy amount of energy as a 30-ton excavator, but we can still update the machine that you have. And this is our big push against integrated installed batteries, is you're spending a significant amount of money on that, and you're taking a lot of technology risk. It's like your iPhone comparison. We're making it so you can buy the iPhone, and then you just keep getting software upgrades. Whereas with the integrated, you're buying an iPhone and you can never upgrade that. You just have to keep buying a new one as technology gets better. It's not what's best for the customer.
A couple of comments from Chris Ford. The first one is that this man's got the right way of thinking. All you need to do is power a pump, no matter what motor drives it. But this is a personal favorite, and you can take this and use this in your marketing literature in the future. It says, refueling, my favorite pastime today, lost 2 hours, half a fingernail, pissed off to say the least, all over which fuel barrels are to use. I'm guessing that won't be such a problem with the Z-Quip system.
No, we have some cool ways to do it. There are 3 different ways you can get power to the machine. So you can swap batteries on site, which is useful but not the preferred method, right? That's work. You can fast charge from a charger, so we can take the batteries off, put them at a fast charger, or you can pull up to a machine and fast charge. And the cool thing about this is Moog's heritage is in the aerospace industry and the space industry. And so there's a thing called buddy sharing, buddy stores, where you can pull a machine up to another machine, swap a charge or swap a battery to keep them going. If you take these huge excavators, the reason people are going hydrogen is because it takes so much energy to get that machine from where it's digging to where the energy would be to charge a battery. So it's easier to take hydrogen to it. So the reason that, everybody says hydrogen or electric, it's not that either is wrong, it's that there are different use cases for when they're right. And we just tried to make the use case for electric simpler. So you can always take electricity to it. It's this idea of last mile delivery that you have in a lot of other industries. It's last mile delivery of electricity to wherever you need it, whenever you need it.
Dan Cullen is back and says, I feel diesel engines will be around for a long time. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but
yeah, I don't either.
They are being phased, aren't they?
Right.
I think one of the things that struck me, and it was a conversation I had with Volvo a few months ago, was this idea of you've got some localities, local authorities or cities or whatever it might be, are planning to be zero emissions by 2040. If you think that a diesel machine has got a lifespan of 7, 8, maybe 10 years, those are going to need to be phased out fairly soon, aren't they? So going back to your falling residual values of machines at auction and resale, that's going to start hitting even harder very, very soon, isn't it?
All right. And that's it. Diesel's going to be around for a while. Electric will be around. Hydrogen will be around. Make it work in a way that makes sense, and that you don't look at, there's, as we've gone through the governments in different countries of how things are going, there's a lot of clarity about what they want it to be, but not a lot of clarity about how they want to get there. And so coming up with solutions that the people on this, listening to the show right now can hear and say, I get that. I would do that. That would work on my site, and I can see that happening. That's all we hope for.
I think Dan has probably missed the point of these. Can you operate the machine while it's on charge?
No.
You can't operate the machine while it's on charge, but you can take the modules or switch the modules out, leave them on charge, and you can carry on with alternative modules. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Jim Turner says this might sound a bit daft. I'm sure it doesn't. But what about your modules in parallel with the onboard generator for remote working conditions, where out of hours charging might not fill it up enough for a full shift?
So this is one of those ideas that makes a lot of sense, but people don't want to hear, right? That was one of the first sort of hybrid solutions we looked at like that, where rather than having a diesel running at 80% RPM for the whole day, you have a generator running at 20% of a similar type of size, and it will power the machine for as long as you need and cut emissions by 70 or 80%. People will laugh at that because right now the thinking is that it has to be an all or nothing solution, which you can believe that or you don't have to believe that. But for the adoption of this stuff to happen, right now there's a disconnect between something that, are we trying to reduce emissions or are we trying to go zero emission? Those can't exist in the same way. And so the generator would work. That would make sense. A lot of people for a long time will be charging batteries with diesel generators. Yeah.
We've got our discussion this evening with Tim Burnhope of JCB, talking about this non-road mobile machinery thing. Where do you've got your finger on the pulse, and you're from Harvard, you know your stuff. Where do you see? I realise you've got your foot very much in the electrification camp, but where do you see this panning out?
With the hydrogen?
With everything. Are we heading towards electric to a certain size of machine, hydrogen after that, or is it going to be a mix, or how do you see it all playing out?
I see zero emission happening. I see this being the way. If you take away the cost and all of the how it gets done, using a zero emission machine is nice. It's quieter for an operator. If you think of the industry and how difficult it is to get young people and new people into the industry, electrification doesn't just mean zero emission. It really makes these machines smarter and more capable to do a lot of things. This can lead into the question of autonomy and connectivity and a lot of the smarts that come with these machines when you go electric. And Moog is a part of that. So we do see that, and we also see what the other OEMs are doing. I think what is going to prevent it from happening, though, is a lack of coordination and standardization across the industry. You look at Tesla opened their patents up to the world and said, please, for the love of God, people, hurry up, right? This is, you have to work on the same thing to make it work, or people can't have this on site. Construction's even worse, that not every electric machine will take the same chargers or will work together or have the same software interface. And they have to. And so until the industry as a whole understands what it's trying to accomplish and focuses on a standard and then focuses the innovation around that standard, it's going to be a lot of wasted money and a lot of pissed off customers who are getting a bad experience.
Obviously, this is a new technology. If I wanted to switch my machine, I don't have a machine, but if I wanted to switch my machine to Z-Equip today, could I do that here in the UK?
In the UK, sure. Yeah. Yep. So we have a handful of machines we've already done and are working on. We're sticking with a lot of excavators, right? So we have 8-ton, we're working on 21 and 25 ton. But like I said, what's tough with this is you can't just build an inventory of these things. It's expensive, it's tough, but there was certainly a chicken and egg where we had to make them and we had to show people that this was real. So we're at that point now where we've done the conversions of machines. We know that it works. A lot of our focus and investment has been on the battery module side and making sure that the connectivity there, the management of those, the charging, the safety, making sure that those work well, because that's the core of this. It's it really does, it changes how you think about what the machine is. Like when the battery is the most expensive thing and it lasts the longest and is the most valuable on your job site, it almost turns that the the battery is the asset, and the machine is the attachment, right? It's I have an excavator attachment for my battery, or a wheel loader attachment, and the OEMs don't like that. But steel and the frames and what goes into that machine is significantly less complex than the battery side of it, but they have to work together well. And so the more we can make a product that just works well, and then work with customers for their individual needs and what machines they need.
I know you've got to go and catch your flight in a second, so I've got one more question, unless anybody else has got
Sure.
anything from the chat. One of the things that struck me while you were saying that is this is a new way of thinking. The battery is the asset, and the excavator or the wheel loader is just the attachment. This does require a new way of thinking, but one of the old ways of thinking, I guess, which I'm sure you will encounter as you're traveling around the world. What about backup? What about parts support? I'm saying parts support. Batteries don't actually have parts, I guess. But if I were to invest however much to convert my 50-ton Caterpillar excavator, I'd quite like to be able to phone somebody in the UK to get them to come and sort it out.
Look, back to our parent company, Moog. The heritage that they have in aerospace, and everything has to work all the time. And they're called LRUs, line replaceable units, where if something breaks, it's a very easy swap out. And we also work with the government and these large, Airbus, SpaceX, all of them. We work with them to have depots of service to help them know how to service it, or we help them service it. So we took that idea into this construction space, where anything that we are putting on this machine, everything from the hydraulic pump back, is modular to the point where it can be replaced on site that day. And so depending on the size of the fleet, what you have, the benefit of Moog also is we have sites all over the world. We have 2 sites in the UK, we have sites in Amsterdam, we have sites in Germany, Italy, right? We can be everywhere in Europe. And then in the States, we've got a dozen sites all over the country. So we know that we can have the parts where you need them, when you need them, and we can deliver them quickly. We can swap them out quickly. But then there was an added bonus to this that we didn't realize, that when something else breaks, right? The most common thing that will break on an excavator is going to be a hydraulic something. When you take all of the batteries out, you have perfect access to the valve block. All of the hoses are right there. And so the techs that we have on site working on these with us say, this is the easiest I've ever been able to work on a machine. And so it increases the serviceability of these machines to a level that they couldn't even be at before. And you take that into a right to repair type of environment that we're in, right? It's yes, we're pushing this electrification and this zero emission concept, but the whole point is uptime, right? If I could talk about the price and the cost of this stuff, this is expensive, and you need to find new ways to get value out of this. And so as you convert a machine, it doesn't make a lot of sense. As you convert a few machines, you start to coordinate, and there can be a real synchronization there. But then when you start to convert a site, and you think about how you can move electricity across the site, you can have no downtime with these machines. Anything breaks, you swap it on site that day, it's back up and working. It starts to make pretty good sense, and it gets pretty close to diesel. And so, yes, there's an investment, and yes, there's a commitment to be made, but we absolutely see a future where zero emission can compete very, very closely with diesel on the financial side.
Well, Mick Norton has just asked that very question. You can't discuss zero emissions without the cost consideration. EVs are simply too expensive. I mean, I realize you can't look at this in a black and white manner, but ultimately, what is the alternative? We sit on our hands and wait for sea levels to drown us all, I guess. Yeah,
there were a lot of technologies that people thought were too expensive and not right. I mean, there's a famous one of the CEO of BlackBerry talking about how stupid the iPhone is because it was so expensive, and why would anybody do that? And look, I believe we will be on the right side of history with this. And on the Chinese side, sure, if you want to spend this money and buy a Chinese machine, go for it. But that Chinese manufacturer is not going to have a service depot or a person to call on the phone that can help you right away with that. And there's always going to be low-cost providers, and there will always be less good machines. That's just not what we're doing.
Dan Cullen is going to send you on your way with you're feeling good about yourself. A great informative guy.
Yeah,
Well done, he says. I am going to let you go, but I do need to ask. I've put the website on the screen there.
Yes.
Secret.tech. Is that the best place to find out more?
It is, yes. Yep. And if you submit anything on there, it goes right to my inbox. So happy to talk.
Fantastic stuff. And to anybody that is traveling over to Intermat, Chris will actually be there on the Friday and the Saturday. I won't be there on the Saturday, but if you want to meet up on the Moog. Now, I've been saying Moog, but you've been saying Moog.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of both of those, but I think it's Moog. So.
Okay, in that case, if anybody wants to go and meet Chris on the Moog stand, Friday is the best time to do it, because I may well be there as well, if that doesn't put you off. And Peter McKenna says, got to go, but have a safe flight, bud. Jim Turner, so a 5-module machine with 4 modules and an onboard generator could easily do a full uninterrupted day if it needed to. On average day, it would could manage on 4 with a mid-shift charge.
He gets it. There you go.
There you are, Jim. If you
I like
ever
this
grow
crew.
tired
This crew gets it.
if you ever grow tired of whatever it is you're doing for a living at the moment, you've got a job as a
give me a call.
Secret salesman. Chris,
thank you very much, Mark. Yeah.
No problem at all. Go and catch your flight. Hopefully, well, I'll speak to you before, but hopefully I'll get to see you over in Paris, and we'll grab a coffee together.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
No worries. Have a safe flight. Enjoy yourself.
Take care.
Right, people. I'm gonna do what I normally do. I'm gonna roll the outro in just a second, and then we'll go over into the chat. I don't know if you want to talk more about the Z-Crypt solution. If you want to talk about 2.5 billion in potential fines. There's Bill Perry, all the way from the US of A. I think Bill's in the US of A, or he might be in Canada. Don't know. Bill, where are you? But thank you very much indeed for that. Absolute pleasure. Always good to find out about new stuff, and I do like new stuff. It keeps it all interesting. So let me take that off the screen for now, and let me go over here. I'll be back with the Craic in just a moment. There we are, and I can tell you that Bill Perry wasn't watching from Canada. He was watching from the US of A. Thank you very much indeed for that, Dan. Great show. Yeah, listen, makes it easy when you've got somebody that knows their stuff, doesn't it? And you know, it never ceases to blow my mind. One of the things that struck me about this is obviously Moog, as we're now calling them, and Z-Crypt, American-based, based in both New York, Buffalo in New York, and I think they're over in Canada as well. We could have done this transatlantically, and I was more than happy to do it, but as we know, Chris was actually here. He was at Heathrow. But the very fact that he can turn on a computer at Heathrow Airport and take part in a live show still blows my mind after all of these 674 shows. Yeah, absolutely. Right, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chat, because I'm sure you have much better things to be doing with your time. There he is. Dan Cullen was first off the mark this morning with Morning Team. Good morning to you, Dan. Thank you for your contribution with all the questions. All good stuff. Peter McKenna, Mr. Sicknote himself, is here as well. Good morning to you, Peter. Footy is here. Gary Muirhead. Good. A complete mental block there. Good morning, Gary. Good chat last night, by the way. Thank you very much indeed. Apparently my other half is here somewhere. There she is. Morning. Yes, morning. Out of bed, are we? Good. Glad to see it. Glenn Johnston's here as well. Morning, Glenn. And no, this is not a tea cozy on my head. I spotted these online about 6 months ago. Yeah, about 6 months ago. It's called a Docker's hat. I don't know if you can see it. If I turn around. It's kind of like a baseball cap because it's got a strap on the back. I spotted them, and the first one I saw was actually baseball cap material, but it's like a baseball cap without a brim. And I thought, well, that's weird, but I quite like it. And then when me and Fred were traveling over to Paris, we saw a guy at the Eurostar terminal wearing one. And I thought, yes, that's the thing for me. Fred laughed and said that I was stupid. But then it was my birthday on Monday this week, and Fred bought me the hat. He remembered. Thank you, Fred. Yes, I'm sure it may be somewhere else. I actually had not an official Stetson. I do have a cowboy hat made of straw that I bought myself at Glastonbury Festival many moons ago. That's here somewhere. I don't know where. Probably in the lockup, where most of my hats are. Don't encourage him, Ruth, please, for goodness sake. Will plant hire be under the CMA radar? Listen, obviously, I made a big song and dance about all things related to demolition because that's my baby, as it were. But they'd already done that. There was some sort of roofing company, or not roofing company, but roofing organisations that fell under the radar. There was somebody that there was a bunch of people making, I think it was like clay pipes or something like that. So they gradually, the CMA do seem to be working their way through various aspects of the construction sector, the wider construction sector. They've done some construction products companies. Obviously, they've done demolition companies, and they are now focusing on house builders. And you would have to say, if they do end up, and that's worst case scenario, I guess, 2.5 billion in fines. But if they do end up landing billions in fines, you would kind of expect them to say, do you know what? This construction is a nice low-hanging fruit. What else can we have a look at? And you'd have to say plant hire could quite easily fall under the spotlight. Mark Whiting's in the house. Now, there was my question of the day, which kind of got lost once we got Chris on the show. Does your machine have a name, or what would you call a new machine? I think we did have a few answers on that. Dan Cullen saying, yeah, different hat today. Different hat every day, isn't it? Let's have a look. Jim Turner's here as well. Another month done. Oh, yes, it's the end of the month, isn't it? Of course. I was a bit confused there. Gary Muirhead says he calls his machine the PlayStation. Well, given the way you operate these machines these days, it is very much PlayStation-esque. I could do with a name for my computer. I'm tempted with the obvious is HAL, I guess, from Space Odyssey, but I'm much more inclined to go with Holly. If anybody watched Red Dwarf, Holly, yes. Anybody's got any suggestions for naming my computer, please let me know. Luke Arn is in the house. Morning, Luke. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Andy Hare is here as well. Morning, Andy. Anybody in the market for attachments? This is not a paid sponsorship, but if anybody's in the market for attachments, first and foremost, visit Northern Track. Speak to Andy, because he's a smashing fella. Go and do that. You'll thank me for it. We had one or two guesses on the mystery machine today, and then Gary Muirhead ruined everyone's fun by getting it based on nothing at all. Well done, Gary. Well spotted. Peter McKenna says, question of the day, I don't have my own machine, but if I did, I'd call it Hercules. Yes, that's a good manly name. Jim Turner says, fair play, Gary Muirhead. I call my machine Dave, as it doesn't like me on the levers, not used to being under pressure. Dan Cullen also says, a great video. Always found JCB mini excavators underpowered. As I say, we do have Tim Burnhope on the show tonight. You may want to mention that. You may not want to mention it. I mean, obviously the focus is so completely different in that we're talking NRMM, but if you want to say anything about that, you can certainly do that. Peter McKenna saying, well done to Gary Muirhead. You would think they make a high-vis mini excavators most of the time. They're on Streetworks projects. Feel free to mention that as well. There is Joshua, Mick Saunders' son, who says, thanks for the email. He will catch up with you all soon. No problem at all. And no, Dan, we have not shown that video before. We've shown AMI attachments. We've also featured East Coast abatement, Ricky Webb, but we have not featured that video before. The new 6-ton and 9-ton JCB dig very well, but the servo speed on the 9-ton is slow. As a machine, it won't be it won't be rushed. I can relate to that. That machine is the thing for me, by the sound of it. That's very much how I am. Lots of people liking the graphics and the decals on Ricky Webb's machines. And I don't know if you noticed, but Ricky wears, this is kind of a contradiction in terms, but he often wears a camouflage jacket, but it's high vis. Can't make up his mind whether he wants to be seen or not, but it looks very smart. He's put a lot of thought into his branding as well. Footy says, I like the idea of finger and thumb. Very good system. Don't know why we don't have it over here. It's available. It's just a matter of whether people actually want it. And I know it's one of those attachments that seems to get disparaging remarks. You put a thumb on your machine, all of a sudden you're less of a man, apparently. Because apparently there is a breed of excavator operators here in the UK who like to do things the hard way. I don't know why, but they do. Dan Carlin says, great combo. Why don't they have it in the UK? It is available, not necessarily the AMI attachments one, but there are thumbs available. There are thumbs. Nick Drew. There are thumbs available in the UK. You just got to go and look for them. Now, somebody said, if you're getting paid by the hour, why rush? It's a good question, but Jim Turner has the answer. Because I'm paid to work as efficiently as possible. That's why I'm worth the money. Well said. I would tip my hat to you, Jim, but there's not much to get hold of with this, so just have to take my word for it. Very informative video. And that, I think, was the AMI attachments one. Dan Carlin says, love to work in mine. Looks cool. Yeah, imagine. Lots and lots of space to work with. And there's people saying good morning to our new friend, Chris Lafleur. I thought Chris was very, very good indeed. We answered all of those questions, I think, on the modules themselves. I thought that was an interesting one from Gaz Evans. How are these battery excavators performing river and sea work? Exactly the same as a diesel. You don't want to put them underwater, but it just, what did he say? Not a toaster in a bathtub scenario, which is somewhat reassuring to hear. I have to say, and let me be absolutely clear here, I am not being paid by the fine folks at ZQuip or Moog, take your pick. But I have to say, when I saw it, when they introduced it to me in Paris a couple of weeks ago, I actually thought, and somebody says this a bit later on, now that is clever, and I do still believe that is clever. Let's have a look. I know Footy has asked this a couple of times. How would they fit them on a dozer or a dump truck? Much the same as you would fit it on an excavator. There is a bit of taking the machine apart and putting it back together again, but that's just the way it is. But again, you know, if the battery modules are going to outlive the machine, is that a big deal? What I don't know about, and I know he mentions crushers and screens a bit later on. I don't know quite how you go about changing those. I mean, when you think about the engine bay on an excavator or a wheel loader, it's there. You lift the lid, you drop in a module, take a module out and drop in another one. With a crusher or a screen, or possibly with a dozer, the engine tends to be a bit more tucked away. Don't know the answer to that. Stay tuned. I will ask the question and see what they say. Not now, obviously, but a bit later on. I've just seen the questions I missed there. What do you think of the nuclear battery that China is looking into? I think he was very clear about his thoughts on all things Chinese. Feel free to go and buy one. I think he's got a very good point. 40 left us and went back to work. There's Mick Norton, joined us a bit late. Thank you very much indeed for being here, Mick. Rattling through. Jim Turner, sounds a better system than most electric machines seems to have at the moment. Good luck to them. Yeah, listen. The big thing here, and I realise this is putting it in very polarising terms, but ultimately, you know, we do have a scenario in the world where, you know, climate change and rising sea levels and all of that kind of thing. The key is we have got to get to zero emissions. Now, there will be obstacles to overcome. You know, there may be cost implications, there may be impacts on the workforce and so on. But unless we do something, we have an issue. And I think that could help to overcome it. Now, funnily enough, there you are. It's been a very American show this morning. There is our friend Ricky Webb from East Coast Abatement and Demolition all the way over in the US of A. Hey Mark, thanks for sharing. We love our demo grabs for everything above the ground demolition. The overseas market has that right. But for slab foundations, bucket and thumb combos are easier. There you are. You have it from the man himself. Slab and foundation, bucket and thumbs, all the way. Buckets and thumbs, people. You heard it here from my mate Ricky Webb. Morning, Ricky, and thank you very much indeed for your input. Thank you for being here as well, and well done on the video. I don't know if you caught that bit, but lots of people saying very nice things about your the way that your machines are decked out. They look very smart indeed. Mick Norton says that outfit used to haul our Cat Vickers and Falca dozers in the 1960s, had 3 Scammell prime movers named Faith, Hope and Charity. Faith, Hope and Charity. Andy Hare says, interesting bucket grab combo from my manufacturer's point of view. Do you offer a thumb, Andy? And I don't mean to hitch a lift. I mean, do you offer a thumb? Could you offer a thumb? If somebody wanted a thumb, could we have a Northern Track thumb? That is the question of the day. Oh, yes, purple love, always appreciated, yes. There's the other benefit of working with Northern Track. You get attachments that are the best colour. One of the questions that I've got it in mind, good morning to Joe Brown Construction Company over in the States as well, who have just joined us over on Instagram. One of the questions of the day that I've had on the list since December. I wrote a load in December. And one of them is, do you have a favourite colour? I do. It's purple. As demonstrated by Andy Hare and Northern Track. We certainly could, although they aren't as popular on this side of the pond on larger machines. So, those people that just saw a thumb and thought, I'd like a piece of that, Andy Hare, Northern Track, he can hook you up. And in time, the diesel gen could be upgraded to an internal combustion hydrogen on it, if that is the direction things going. Yeah. One of the reasons that I wanted Tim Burnhope on the show tonight, apart from the fact that Tim's a really nice fella and you know, NRMM is an important discussion point, is precisely that. As it stands at the moment, our future powering and fueling of machines is very much in the lap of the gods. And I don't believe even those manufacturers, JCB does have a foot in both camps. Lieb has a foot in both camps. Volvo has a foot in both camps. Hyundai has a foot in both camps. But I don't think it's a case of hedging. I think it's more a case of we honestly don't know how this will play out. Because ultimately, we're talking about hydrogen, and hydrogen does, on paper, appear to be a very efficient solution. But as Chris has just said while we were talking to him, you've still got to get hydrogen to the machine. That's a bit of a complication, which we could do without. And we don't yet know, we're forecasting the cost of hydrogen, but we also forecasted the cost of HS2. And we were wildly inaccurate with that. So all the time we're sitting on our hands thinking, yes, hydrogen will be the saviour of the planet. It might not be. It might be phenomenally expensive or completely impractical, and we don't yet know the answer to that. So, tune in tonight, find out more. I think you could probably do this as well. Chris Ford has just said, Andy Hare, I don't need a thumb, but I could do with a tooth. You two took that out among yourselves. Let's have a look who we got here. That is Mick Dalton saying depleting the planet's lithium deposits to manufacture batteries will do naught to achieve zero emissions. Wish I'd had that in front of me when I spoke to Chris earlier. No such thing as zero emissions unless we are living in mud huts that are dug out with pick and shovel. Concrete, bricks, blocks, plastics, tiles, carpets, all create emissions in manufacturing. So everything that is made new is anti-zero emissions. But recycled, upcycled, repurposed things, including buildings, create less emissions. And that there is why I believe that the Z-Quip solution might just be part of the solution. If you have a big excavator, a big Cat, a big Komatsu, a big Liebherr, a big Volvo or something like that, do you really want to throw that on the scrap heap and have to buy another one at the best part of £1 million possibly in order to meet sustainability and decarbonisation standards? Or would you rather hand the machine over to the fine folks at Moog and Z-Quip and say, electrify that baby, will you? And bearing in mind that the batteries themselves will outlive the machine, it's a long-term investment. Well, the battery modules, it's a long-term investment because those battery modules could also be used in other parts of your equipment fleet as well. I think they're onto something. I really do think they're onto something. Looking forward to catching up with them in Paris, if not before. That is going to do us. I'm going to be back here in 8 hours, 9 hours, something like that, to speak to our friend Tim Burnhope. I have a slide that proves that I'm going to be speaking to Tim Burnhope. I've got a bunch of questions that I've already got panned out, but you've already shown that you are on the money with some of your questions. You can ask somebody else about those very things tonight. Jim Turner says, spot on, keep the old machines going with upgraded technology instead of scrapping them. Yeah, that's the way I see it. And it'll be interesting to get the take from, I mean, obviously, Tim is in the business of selling new machines. That's what JCB do, and they do it very well. But, you know, I think Tim is very much a realist, and maybe with certain machines, would you want to go to the expense of electrifying an existing mini excavator? You probably wouldn't, because it would be cost prohibitive. Would you want to do it on a big machine? You may well do. So yeah, let's have a chat about that with Tim tonight. As I say, I'll be here, he'll be here 7 o'clock this evening to talk about all things non-road mobile machinery. And we are going to be talking about it because there is a consultation going on as we speak, but it runs deeper than that. The consultation is open, and it's open to manufacturers of machines, it's open to owners of machines, and it's open to operators of machines. I will share the web link with you this evening, but you can actually take part. You can make your voice heard in this consultation, and ultimately you might help drive the direction of travel for future legislation that will dictate how we go about powering our equipment in the future. So be there. Be square. But will the battery actually outlive a machine? Yes, it will. Yes, it will. I've heard that from I think Volvo said that to me first. I think JCB said it to me second, and now we've had it from Chris as well. Yes, they will outlast, and not just outlast, but potentially have a different life afterwards as well. If you go and have a look on the Volvo construction equipment website, there is actually they've got an on-site power bank, like a generator, but it is powered by batteries that have come out of old machines or electric machines that can be repurposed. So those batteries will go on and on. They might not be suitable for use in day-to-day excavators, wheel loaders and that kind of thing, but they will have an extended life. And I did think that was very interesting about this notion. Obviously the Scandinavians are always one step ahead when it comes to anything environmental. It'll be very, very interesting to see the effect of electrification and hydrogen on resale values of diesel, because we will soon get to a point where it will be unwise to buy a diesel machine, bearing in mind, as I've said, they last 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 years, depending on what the application is, maybe a 10-year life. So if you're buying one in the next few years, you will be investing for a period that might ultimately prove to be zero emissions. It's going to be a ramping. I think the diesels will ramp down and stuff. But let's have a chat about that tonight. As I say, I'll be back here at 7 p.m. with Tim Burnhope. Hope you can join us. Hope you come armed with lots and lots of questions. Thank you for giving Chris Lafleur such a warm welcome today. I hope he's caught his flight. He probably should be sat on his plane as we speak. Mick Norton says, did Volvo give our purchaser a guarantee that their battery will outlive the machine? I cannot believe that claim. I don't know if it's part of a guarantee. I will ask the question. I don't know if it's part of the guarantee. But when you think about it, all you will do, based upon application, all you will do is deplete a battery. There are no moving parts, so it's not going to wear out as such. You're just going to get less and less and less power out of it. So if you got that battery and you end up having to take it out and using it as some kind of electrical power storage to run your lights on site, something like that, you can do that. I think that's what they were getting at. But let me ask the question. Maybe it's time we had somebody from Volvo on to talk about that very thing. And Chris Ford says, whatever happened to biofuels? They do get a mention in this NRMM document, but it does feel like there's lots of mentions of alternative fuels, and biodiesel being one of them. But it does feel like it's coming down to a VHS Betamax battle between hydrogen and electric. Ken Hatcher has just said, good morning. Are you still live? I am. An hour and 21 minutes, but you've arrived just as I'm going out the door. People, I need to go and prep for tonight's show. Possibly think about changing the hat because it doesn't look like this one's gone down very well. Sounds a tall claim. Still use 50, 60-year-old equipment. Will a battery last that long? Probably not. Let me have a word with somebody at Volvo and see if I can get them on board, because the guy that I spoke to, there were two actually, and I can only remember one of their names. There was a guy I spoke to when I was at the Nürburgring, maybe 18 months ago, and then I spoke to somebody else at another racing event, and they both said the same thing, but it'd be interesting to get one of those on. And yes, Ken, there is a show later on. Just very quickly, there you are, 7 p.m. Non-road mobile machinery with the man, the myth, the legend, Tim Burnhope of JCB. Tim has had his finger in the development of some of the hottest new products that JCB has introduced. I don't want to get sidetracked. I don't want to get into, ideally, I don't want to get into individual machines and that kind of thing. But he is very, very, very closely allied to this NRMM thing. He's got his finger on the pulse. He's been to the meetings. JCB are contributing to it. So let's contribute to JCB for them to contribute on our behalf. Join us tonight, Ken, 7 o'clock. Don't be late. Till then, everybody, go and have a fantastic day. I'll see you 7 o'clock. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic day. All the best.